Hello and welcome to the New Thought Men's Podcast, where we explore what it is to be a healthy spiritual man today. I'm Eamon. It's great to have you with us. Welcome to the New Thought Men's Podcast. I am Eamon. Today we are here with Barry Ebert. Barry, welcome. I've known you for many, many years. You are a mentor, a friend, an elder, just beautiful man all around. So excited to have you on the show today. So let me just share a little bit about you with people who might not know. Barry Ebert is a minister emeritus and former youth director at Mile High Church in Denver, Colorado for over 20 years. And if you want to check out Mile High Church, it's milehighchurch.org. And he has been teaching Love and Logic parenting workshops at various locations for over 30 years and continues to teach and counsel with parents. He's married with 2 grown sons, 2 granddaughters, and he considers parenting and grandparenting to be the best and most important job there is. Barry, welcome. Thank you. Thank you for the work that you do. Thank you for the work that you do with youth. Thank you for the work that you've done with men. We have done so much stuff together, and I just love this work. So I'm glad we're able to talk about it today. I've taken a couple of your courses on parenting with Love and Logic over the years. I definitely went through a second time because there's so much to catch with this. It is incredible. And not necessarily, I don't have kids of my own, but using it with my nieces and nephews and other kids that I know was just a game changer. And it didn't really stop there. It actually was super helpful. Some of these techniques, super helpful in my relationships, in my friendships, in business too. So I think it's more of a strategy versus that you can use in a lot of different situations versus just for kids. So share with us just a little bit about Love and Logic, kind of, if we don't know anything, what is this thing, and why would I want to use it?
Well, I think a lot of it has to do with responsibility. You know, in their first book, Becoming a Love and Logic Parent, Jim Fay and Foster Klein, who were the authors, kind of the cut line was teaching kids responsibility. And then when you take the workshop, you realize responsibility can't be taught. It has to be caught. And you want to give kids the opportunity to learn how to be responsible by being around us and by getting the opportunity. You know, one of the things we say, we want kids to make lots of mistakes because that's how we learn. So when kids are around us, we want to be open to them learning their lessons. We want to be open to them being willing to experiment and try new things, and to be open-hearted with them. I think the relationship with our kids and the relationship within our family radiates out into the world. If we have happy families, I think we're going to have a happy neighborhood, and then we're going to have a happy world. So that's why it's been so important to me to work with families, because I think that's where our happiness and where our sense of order begins.
And honestly, that's the circle of influence, isn't it? It's like I have influence over myself, and then beyond that, my close relations, my partner, my kids, maybe my family to a certain extent, or extended family, and then community and on out from there. And I think, and you mentioned this, it's really about modeling. Is what I heard anyhow. It's really about modeling. Like when you were talking about technology during your sharing for the summit, it was like, yeah, when we're driving down the road, we're talking on the phone and the kids are in the back seat. It's like, what are you modeling in that moment? Togetherness, connection, maybe singing a song, or are you on the phone and just ignoring? And so you're teaching the kids to ignore you. I thought that was kind of a profound statement.
Well, I think
Go ahead.
technology is an interesting piece because, you see this all the time when kids are acting up in the store and their parents will just hand them the phone, right? Because that works, and they know they'll stop acting up if you hand them the phone. But that doesn't make our relationships better. Now the kids got the relationship with the phone rather than having a relationship with their parent, right? So one of the things when I'm counseling with parents that have young kids is to address the relationship that you have with technology in your house, right? Because we have so much technology that most of our relationships are with that instead of with the people in our house. We have to be conscious about it. And it's not going to go away. It's just about the way that we use it, the way that we interact with it, and what goes on inside our house. That's where we have a sense of control, and we need to take control of that. It's really important.
Yeah. Yeah. Oh my gosh, for sure. It does take work to nurture and build those relationships with others, with your kids, with your partner. And technology can be a disruption to that in a lot of senses. And I get when you say, yeah, just give the kid the phone and quiet them up. And we're teaching them that. Here you go. Here you go.
Yeah.
Instead of paying attention and letting them know. Well, so one of the first things that you said, we got ahead of ourselves there, but it was good. It's good to talk about technology always and how it's impacting our lives and to be aware. And that goes right along with number one. You said, number one, take care of yourself as a parent. And how powerful that is. Often recognizing that, when we come to someone, and it doesn't matter who, when we come to someone with the empty glass and offer that, it's like, okay, there's a couple of drops in there. But when we come to them with a full glass of water and are like, okay, I am full. I am here. I have enough to share at this point, versus offering them just the drops at the bottom of the glass. When we're resourced, when we're supported, when we're, well rested, when we're taking care of ourselves, we're able to show up as a better person in so many levels, in so many ways, that I think you could probably call that, in most circumstances, take care of yourself first. It's like the adage of being on a plane. Yeah, put your own mask on first and then help others. So I love that. And then you got into empathy and consequences. Talk to us a little bit more about that.
Well, I think the way that we learn is what that's about. We learn by experience, and we learn by example. So you were talking about modeling. We learn from our parents. We have a tendency. We all know the things that we learn from our fathers, the things that we learn from our mothers, that we learned growing up in the house. But we also learn by experience, and by when we go out into the world. When kids start going to preschool, they learn different things. They come home with different words. Oh my God, where did you hear that? Well, I heard that at school. And that's just the way the world works. So I think that, there's the three things. There's the things that we learn at home from our family. There's the things that we learn from the culture that we grow up in. And then there's the things that we learn because we're interested in it and we're putting effort into it. And so those are kind of the three legs of the stool. And we want our kids to have all of those things. We want them to have a good environment to learn in at home. The culture is huge, and they've got to deal with this culture. And then we want them also to find things that they're interested in, things that they're passionate about, and so that we can support them in those things that bring them joy, bring them passion. So I think that uh, yeah, so experience and example is how we learn, and we want to give them the opportunity to have experiences. And when they make mistakes or when things happen to them, we want to be empathetic, resist the temptation to explain the lesson. That's one of my favorite things when I'm talking to men. When I've got men in my workshop, I always say, this is a tendency for dads. We love to explain the lesson. We love to give a lecture. And so we got to resist that tendency to explain the lesson and let the consequence explain the lesson for us.
Yeah. Yeah. You mentioned duct tape, duct tape in your mouth.
Yeah.
I think we have better, we have what do they have? Those new breathing strips. So at least you can breathe. Maybe not duct tape, but an adjacent.
Duct tape's a little radical, I realize, but
we don't want to kidnap anybody, but
one of the times, there's times when I'm teaching parents of teenagers, and I'll say something like this. I'll say, here are 3 things that I can tell you that are going to help you more than anything else with your teenager. Just remember these 3 things. Keep your mouth shut, keep your mouth shut, keep your mouth shut. If you can just remember those 3 things, you're going to stop arguing with your teenagers so much.
Oh, or your partner. I mean, I think it works in a lot of situations.
It does, because we got to get better at listening. We got to get better at listening and trying to convince people of our opinions, right? Yeah. And with kids, if we're talking to them all the time, they're going to start tuning us out.
I think that's one thing that men's work really taught me is how to really listen, how to listen to people without an agenda, not want to fix it, to not want to, offer my advice or here's what I would do, but to really hear the person and hear oftentimes the story. So much of our lives, I feel like we're telling these stories, we're telling these experiences over and over again because someone didn't take the time to truly listen to us and to truly hear and to go, oh, wow. Yeah, thank you for sharing that, and really be present in that story or in that moment. And I can't imagine a group that, that wants to be heard more than a young person right now. I think they're out there on social media trying to put all this stuff out there to be seen and be heard. And maybe this is my own perception on some level, because they're not being seen, they're not being heard, they're not being honored in these fundamental ways of community and genuine connection, of being seen and being heard and being appreciated for who they are and the wisdom that they gained through those hard, sometimes difficult lessons. I really appreciate that very much, Barry. So you mentioned, and this hits home a little bit for me, the helicopter parent and the drill sergeant parent. I definitely had a helicopter mom. But where we want to get is to be a consultant style parent. Can you talk a little bit more about that?
Yeah, I think the thing that's important is being the willingness to be with our kids as they're learning their lessons, but not thinking that we have to teach them everything. That the world, they've got to interact with the world, right? And they've got to learn their lessons by building their own sense of self-confidence. And we want to be there to support them and to listen to them. One of the things relating to what you just talked about, we have something going on now with kids called an epidemic of loneliness, because they're so focused outside themselves with their devices and with social media that when they're just there by themselves, they're lonely. They don't really have friends. They don't have somebody whose house they can go over to. They're not really connected with their parents, and they're becoming more and more isolated. You have the illusion that you have all these friends on social media, but you don't really. And so I think that it's more important than ever that we get the skill of listening. And that is what's so important about men's work. When you sit in a circle when you sit in a circle of men and get you to tell your story, and nobody's trying to fix you and nobody's trying to tell you that you're wrong or that you're right, they're just listening. It gives you an opportunity not only to express yourself, but to grow, so that maybe you can move past your story, and that you can see that there's a bigger experience available to you, so you don't get stuck. And I think that that's one of the things that's so great about being able to interact with our kids in an empathetic way as a consultant rather than telling them what to do, right? And I think one of the things that influences our parenting so much today is fear. Parents are very fearful because there's so much fear coming into our lives, coming into our world through the 24-hour-a-day news cycle. The news is always bad. It used to be you got that bad news for a half hour a day. Now you're getting that bad news 24 hours a day, right? And it gives us the idea that everything's really dangerous, that it's really dangerous for our kids, and the world is just dangerous and bad, and our kids are feeling that. And I think if they're going to feel safe, they got to feel safe at home. And I think that begins with being able to listen to each other and being able to have those thinking state conversations with each other.
Yeah, definitely. Before we move into that, I just want to just throw this in. Richard Reeves, he is a scholar, an English scholar, and talks a lot about that loneliness epidemic. You can check him out on, speaking of technology, you can check him out on YouTube, stuff like that. But he is an incredible advocate for men and young men, especially kind of the crisis that we're going through right now with the just ridiculous suicide rates that we have, with the loneliness, with the challenges societally, and technology. So I just wanted to throw that in there, but I don't want to miss out on this thinking state discussion, because it's a good one. This probably more than anything really helped me in my relationships, because the thinking state discussion is not during that impassioned, that emotionally intense moment of you're having a discussion or you're having an argument or whatever it is. You're trying to then put the thinking state in during that. It's not going to work. It does not work at all, in my experience anyhow. And so to this thinking state discussion is when that's not happening at a separate time. You come together and say, hey, I'd like to have a discussion. And then you can really clearly, without the emotional upset and the emotional challenges that go along with having a discussion when someone is emotional, to be able to really clarify, hey, and let's get into these 5 things, but to clarify, hey, I'm here for you. I really want this to work. How can we set up some parameters? How can we set up some agreements so that during those times of emotional challenge or struggle, we can support each other? I'm speaking about relationship, or maybe even relationship with kids too. But to have that discussion outside of that emotional moment, so that you're not, neither one of you are in that turmoil, and you can have that thinking state discussion as it is. But why don't you talk a little bit more about the thinking state discussion and those five pieces?
Well, I think one of the things that's important is we're not trying to deny people's emotions, right? We get emotional. If there's things that are important, we want to listen to each other's emotion, and sometimes we get jacked up. But if we want to move forward, not only with our kids, but with people that we work with, or people we might be managing, or people that we're living with, in our primary relationship, we want to have that opportunity as well to be able to think things through and to talk when we're calm and we've thought about stuff, right? And so we usually talk about, a 5-step method for solving problems. And I work on this with kids, but I've gone into businesses and worked on this with people that just happen to be working in the same business together, right? How do we solve problems together? And it starts with empathy, right? Empathy is such an important part of relationship, of being able to hear the other person, right? And so, you know, I can tell that we're really struggling about something, and I know that this is a big issue for you, and I'm not sure what to do to help. What do you think you're going to do, right? And so this is like, you might talk to a friend. What do you think you're going to do? And they might be confused. Maybe they just need somebody to listen. And I think that's one of the things that we learn in men's work, is we don't have to solve people's problems. And I think as men, we get that thing like, boy, we should be able to fix this. Or somebody's talking to me and I'm like, I know what this guy should do. That's not the gig. That's not the gig. We want to be able to express ourselves in a safe way. And so it's empathy. What do you think you're going to do? And then if they're open to choices, I'm talking about working with kids now. If they're open to choices, you can ask them, would you like to know some other kids who've tried, right? And if they're open to it, then you put some choices out there and you have them put back into it what they think the consequence of a choice would be. And then you give them the opportunity to go forward from that. That's what that method is. But I think things that are important, like we might argue with kids about technology or cell phones. We argue with kids all the time about that. And, when I'm counseling with parents, the cell phone is like the generic consequence. I'm taking her cell phone away. I'm giving her cell phone back. You can't have your cell phone this week. Rather than it being a consequence, can we talk about what's really important in our relationship and how the cell phone works, right? And to have a conversation about it, like you'd have a conversation with a friend, rather than using it as a weapon or a consequence. And I think that's really where the relationship can grow, whether it's a relationship between somebody you work with or your significant other or your children, to be able to think and to have a thinking state discussion, to talk about it when things are calm. That's what we hope for our government too, that they might get to that point.
Yeah. Yes, absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think that's great. So the empathy, the message of what will you do,
power
or
message.
the power message, as you referred to it as. The number 3, kind of the thoughts or options or choices, and then stating the consequences, number 4. Having the person who's going to experience the consequences stating the consequence. I love the example that you gave in the sharing. Was, well, some kids might want to sit close to another kid and maybe copy off of their test. That would be one strategy for doing well on a test. And then the kid's like, well, I get kicked out of school for that.
That's right.
So I just thought that was a brilliant way to kind of address that.
Mm-hmm.
And then number 5, just not being attached. Just it's either helping solve the problem or not, or permission to solve or not to solve.
Yeah.
Good luck with that. I hope that works out for you.
And see, and I think what you just said is an important thing. I talked earlier about the fine line between empathy and sarcasm, right? So it could be, I appreciate you talking to me. I hope this works out, man. I hope you get this going here. That'd be great. Or as opposed to, well, good luck. I hope that works out.
That works out for you.
Those are the same words, but it's about your tone. And I think that we have to watch our tone when we're talking with our kids. And a lot of us didn't grow up with a great tone, right? A lot of times people grow up with parents who don't even engage until they're angry, right? And so I think that's why I really stress the thinking state, especially if you have like middle school kids, because it gives you the opportunity to drop in and see what they're thinking about.
Yeah. Brilliant. Oh, Barry, I mean, there is so much here. And so I just want to do a little plug for Love and Logic. It's loveandlogic.com if you want to find out some more information about that. And also for you, Reverend Barry, your website, Barry Ebert, EBERT.com. And Barry not only is this incredible wise sage, an elder who has a great sense of humor, but he's also an amazing musician. So you can find out more about his positive music there at his website. But I do want to leave with this question of what does healthy masculinity look like in the 21st century? Where are we headed? What do you think is going to get us there, or where are we headed?
Well, I think we're in a time of great change, right? And I think a lot of us grew up with, the guy goes to work and mom stays home and takes care of the kids. And I think those roles are changing, and it's been difficult for us to find a place. Well, where do the men fit in now? If the women are making money, if the woman's the breadwinner, how do I still fit into this family, or what's my sense of purpose? And I think, I'm seeing a lot more men my son's age being much more involved in the parenting aspect, bringing their kids to school, dropping their kids off at school, and girls getting more involved in sports. You can see how girls' sports are exploding and stuff like that. That doesn't need to be a threat to men. This is good. This is good for us. Gives us an opportunity for healthy masculinity. And I think where it's going to show up is in having healthier relationships with all the people that we're related to, and it's been good for me being around my son, who has a couple of little daughters, and like going to his school and going to the school that the girls go to, and I get to play music at their school and get to meet all these other dads. And it's really good to see dads more involved in the family, involved in raising the kids, and more involved in teaching. And I think that, a healthy masculinity now is to not be threatened by change. The world is changing. We can't stop it from changing. It's not going to go back to the way it was. It's going to move forward, and we can be a part of that. And I think healthy masculinity is taking good care of ourselves. We're starting there again, to take good care of ourselves and to be open to healthy relationships. And I think empathy is just such an important part of that. One of the things that I've always loved about men's work is our ability to sit in a circle and listen to each other, right? And to not fix each other, but to support each other. And I think that's what's going to bring us into the next part of it.
Yeah. Oh, thanks so much, Barry. Yeah. So much of that wisdom. I mean, and for me, that's where men's work was, where I got to practice the skills to be better communicator, to be better in relationship, to be a better listener, to be a more caring and interested and curious person too. So I agree. Yeah. We're spiraling upwards. We're evolving. We're moving past those old models. And I see it too, especially in the young men and young men who are dads, for sure. So I think it's a beautiful thing, and support it 100%. So men being, and really what I feel we're talking about is the whole man experience, right? So we're not so, guys have to be the breadwinner, or you have to be the kind of guy. You have to be the mind-oriented one that we can't have the feeling. So from here up is fine, but from here down, no. So it's great to see, especially the younger generations, really embrace that and be that. I mean, I see young guys just hug each other like it was nothing. And for me and my dad, I actually it took me a year to train my dad to hug when I was leaving, just to give a hug and say I love you. It was the best experience and shifted mine and my dad's relationship 100%.
Yeah.
And a beautiful thing. And they've already got that. So I think, how beautiful is that? Barry, I just want to thank you for your service to the community, to Mile High Church for so many years, to being an amazing person, a creative person, an incredible man, an incredible mentor, role model, human being. I just really honor you and appreciate you. Thank you for being in my life, and thank you for being here and sharing your wisdom with all the guys and ladies who have chosen to check this podcast out. And just so grateful for you. So grateful for you.
You're welcome. Thanks for the kind words, and I wish you all the best on this project, man.
Thanks, Barry. So that wraps us up for today, and stay tuned. More to come. I hope you enjoyed this interview from the New Thought Men's podcast. For instant access to all podcast interviews, talks from our summit, men's groups, and so much more, join us at newthoughtmens.community. Thanks so much for being with us today. There's more to come, so stay tuned in.